Hey guys, it's time to Nefus and chill. Hopefully you're staying safe and healthy wherever you may be. There was a drastically different format and much shorter version of this build video that I'm unfortunately not able to release as we've had to push back the launch of the ESO University website, where there would have been a written guide accompanying said video, but we want to make the website not a piece of doo-doo, so I'm releasing the Greymoor iteration of the Templar tank build Light's Mercy in the previous format that you're familiar with since Heraldstorm. However, starting next patch, I'm still going to go with the new format just because it's easier for me as a content creator, and obviously it's easy for you guys to not just sit there at the computer and listen to me ramble on for 30 to 50 minutes about the build. There are a few configurations I made to the Light's Mercy Templar tank compared to the Heraldstorm iteration. Regardless, it's still incredibly tanky, has great sustain, and provides not only healing this time around, but also some damage buff to the rest of your group, resulting in your ability to tank all forming content, including Dragonstar Arena and Black Rose Prison. If you guys have been enjoying my tank builds and want to be kept up to date on them every patch, definitely subscribe to the channel. I will always appreciate you doing so. Greymoor has been an awesome patch for our community and myself. The next tank build I'll release, if I can release it, will be a vampire tank build, although that has been quite a difficult one to sort of finish. While you could tank on any race with this Light's Mercy build, I recommend our Nord, Argonian, Imperial, and Breton. In the Heraldstorm video, I showcased it using an Argonian, and this Greymoor iteration, I'll still showcase it using an Argonian. Please note that your attribute allocations will vary depending on your race. Alright, we'll be going over the stats, Mundus, food, and so forth. First, you'll notice that, again, we're an Argonian, and just to go over the racial passives of the Argonian, we do have increased healing done by 6%. We do also have disease resistance, plus an increase to max health by 1,000. Not as much as a Nord or Imperial, but it's still there. And we also do get 1,000 Magicka resource. We also do get an additional 4,000 health, magic, and stamina return whenever we drink a potion. And you can drink any potion. You can drink tripod potion and trash potion. You'll still get that 4,000 magic health and stamina back. This is why Argonian is seen as a very good race for tanking by a lot of people. Not necessarily a crucial skill, but it's definitely a great passive to have. In terms of the stats, we do have 31 points into health, 33 into stamina. And as I noted before at the beginning of the video, your attribute allocation will definitely depend on whether you're Nord, Breton, Imperial, Argonian, so this may change. However, I will definitely recommend at least getting 36,000 health and making sure your stamina is a little bit higher than your max magic. It doesn't have to be 1k higher, 2k higher, it just has to be a little bit higher than your max magicka, as you need to restore stamina every time you synergize something from a healer or from somebody like a mystic orb or a shard, and that'll give you stamina resource instead of magic return. And stamina is much more crucial in this case for this build, for honestly any tank build for the most part, unless you're going a very specific magicka build where you're blocking with an ice staff, that sort of thing. Our magic recovery unbuffed without a potion is sitting at around almost 1200 magic recovery. Health recovery, that's whatever, but still nice to have every 2 seconds as a passive heal. In terms of resistances, unbuffed it's 24,000, and physical resistance is 21,000. Now, I'll be showing you guys buffed with the potion and the resistance buff on the sword and board bar. We're getting almost 1350 magic recovery. We're also getting 32,000 spell resistance and 29,000 physical resistance. This is more than enough to tank any format content in this game, including Black Rose Prison. So definitely really great stats to have. And also on the rest of the stat bar, if you do end up on it, you still have a pretty decent amount of mitigation. And as for food and Mundus Stone, we are losing the Lord. You can use the Atronek as well, but typically it's going to be the Lord or the Atronek depending on which stats you need. Bewitched Sugar Skulls is going to be your tri-stat food to go. If you don't have Bewitched Sugar Skulls, you can use whatever purple tri-stat food is lying around. Doesn't really matter, doesn't really make or break a build, but Bewitched Sugar Skulls does give a bit more max stats. Now, that's pretty much the stats for the character sheet in terms of the item sets, and this is going to be really cool because Like I mentioned earlier in the video, we did make a couple configurations, or new configurations to the build. Last patch for Heraldstorm, we were wearing Stonekeeper. Now, for the Greymoor patch, Stonekeeper's nerf is really noticeable, especially on non-dragon-like tanking classes. And it is really unfortunate that they had to nerf Stonekeeper to the point that it was like not really fun running it anymore. However, they did buff Engine Guardian by quite a bit. I actually made a separate video on Engine Guardian just because of the buffs it got. Not only did they fix a couple issues regarding the Engine Guardian not even working, or its cooldown being longer than it should be, but they also gave it a 25% proc chance, which is huge. That's like up from, I believe, 10%. And also we do get less max stats, or rather stamina or magic return. However, we get a huge buff to the health gain whenever it procs. So it's like the stamina and magic return is still noticeable and actually still comparable to Stonekeeper. And the health return is ridiculous. I mean, the health return will allow you to just kind of not block. And in this build, you're already sometimes not even blocking even heavy attacks by bosses. As you guys probably saw in the last iteration of the build during Hero Storm, you don't even have to block. But with the health return, that healing done, that's just insane. It's every half a second for 6 seconds. This effect occurs once every 10 seconds. And Engine Guardian, in the dungeons or even PvP that I've used it, it's proccing every single time. I've seen Engine Guardian proc immediately almost like immediately one after another. It's a really strong set to have in both PvE and PvP, and on this build, it was a lot better than Stonekeepers, and I would highly suggest running Engine Guardian on this build, or even other tank specs, to be honest. This patch for Greymoor, or even the next patch if they don't touch it, it's just that good. In terms of the traits and enchantments, we do have Sturdy. Just a heads up, all the traits are going to be Sturdy. You can do a mix of 4 Sturdy, 3 Infused on the chest, head, and legs. It's up to you. I just like 7 Sturdy for this spec. And we do have Prismatic Enchantments on every single piece. But that's the monster set. Really good to have. In terms of the primary item set, we do have Iron Blood. Iron Blood is still, we're still going to keep it. It's what made this tank build pretty tanky last patch, and pretty noticeably, I mean, the snare, again, as I explained and showed in the demonstrations in the last Hero Storm video, the snare is not actually that detrimental. Surprisingly, even in dungeons where you have to be mobile, where you have to be moving, such as in Vet Cradle of Shadows Hardman. That was one specific example we tested out. And the major protection for 10 seconds, which, the cooldown is basically 5 seconds in between each proc. It's just going to make you really tanky, in addition to the mitigations you get from your spell and physical resistance. Major protection is just hugely strong. Like, it's not something you should underestimate, especially in forming content. And this allows us to actually not really block. And this will help, if you're not blocking, this will help your stam sustain and so forth. And in addition to the Engine Guardian returning magicka, stam, or health, this will also determine whether you need to block, you need to heavy attack, or if you just be a bit more passive. In a way, this setup kind of makes the Templar tanking playstyle, which is already kind of passive in my opinion, even more passive, surprisingly, but still fun to just kind of stand there and take all the hits. But yeah, Iron Blood, we're still keeping that from the Hero Storm patch. Not going to spend too much time explaining what it does, but just to kind of go over it real quick: max health, mitigation, or rather armor. We do get major protection for 10 seconds, but we do get our movement speed reduced by 50%, and you can kind of get over this using some source of major expedition or something if you really need to, like Race Against Time. But it's not really needed even in fights where you have to be mobile, like Scalecaller Peak or Cradle of Shadows again. Now, we did make another configuration of this build. Last Hero Storm iteration build was Almalexia on Jewelry and Sword and Board. You can still do it. It's a slightly better alternative than Battle. Goodness, I just forgot the set name. Battalion Defender. Yes, Battalion Defender. It's a bit slightly off compared to Amalexi's Mercy, and Amalexi's Mercy does give you quite a bit more mitigation and health, and we also do give out passive healing every 3 seconds to all your team members within 7 meters of you, and it's that 20% chance is pretty high. Another alternative you can use for your secondary set or even your primary set is Grave Guardian. This is a bit more niche, and I feel like this is kind of interchangeable with Ebon if you want to wear Ebon instead of Iron Blood or Grave Guardian. So that's really up to you. Now, in terms of the secondary set for the Greymoor iteration, we're going to have Twilight Remedy. And Twilight Remedy is actually a very overlooked set in both PvE and PvP. Or more so PvE, because in PvE, Twilight Remedy is like kind of seen as redundant for healers to run, especially in endgame content. And in forming content, you don't really need to use it either. However, if you are wanting with this build to not only provide yourself with sustain and durability, but you also want to give your group a lot of healing and also some sort of passive damage buff, like Minor Force. I don't think you can beat this set because it is based off of synergy. So I will go over this real quick. And in terms of the item traits and enchantments, we have Healthy, and Arcane on the jewelry. This is kind of based on what kind of stats you need or want. So again, this may change depending on what race you're going to go with. This is just for the Argonian. We do have a stamina cost reduction enchantment. This is going to help us not just with skills that cost stamina, which this build will use quite a lot, but this will also help us with reducing the cost of our roll dodges. For those of you who did not know, it affects roll dodge cost. For the magic recovery enchantments on the other two, this is also interchangeable with whatever stats you need, but this is pretty nice to have for that 1300-ish magic recovery. We also do have on the sword, Decisive, and the enchantment won't matter because I would encourage you guys to use poisons, or it doesn't have to be these exact poisons. There's quite a bit of a variety of poisons you can use to your advantage for sustain or buffs. So definitely experiment with that. This is a really fun part about this build, that you just kind of slot poisons. The Decisive trait, when you gain ultimate, you have a 20% chance to gain one additional ultimate. It's going to really work nicely with your Templar passive Dawn's Wrath Prism, which is going to be casting Dawn's Wrath ability, generates 3 ultimate. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. Plus, you also do get the Restoring Spirit passive, reduces the health, magic, stamina, and ultimate cost of your abilities by 5%, which will definitely be noticeable with the Decisive trait. And this Decisive trait will still be active with your poisons, so that's okay. In terms of the shield trait and enchantment, we do have a health enchantment, Infused. This is sort of like the stats I want, especially when I'm blocking. That gives me additional health. And on the back bar, we're going to be running, you can run Twilight Remedy on the back bar too, whether it's a Lightning Staff or a Resto Staff or whatever, but just because of the sustain that we saw in the Hero Storm patch, Maelstrom, Resto Staff, it doesn't have to be perfected either, it can just be non-perfected. It just gives you additional spell crit. When you critically heal with regeneration, you restore Founder Magicka. This effect cannot occur from simultaneous critical heals, meaning you just kind of have to be healing yourself with this staff with radiating regeneration, which is going to be giving you a lot of ticks in a very short span of time. Plus, you have to actually stay on the Resto Staff bar to get the magic return. So this will kind of help because 3 of your skills on the back bar, or potentially 4 depending on your flex slot with Repentance, will be Magicka. Anyway, that's pretty much it. The two-hander enchant / trait will be Infused Crusher. You can keep up Crusher every 4 to 5 seconds on a target with a light attack. You can just light attack bar swap ESO to apply Crusher to a boss or something. Not really a big deal. I mean, if you feel like you need a Lightning Staff or a Night Staff to keep up Crusher passively with Wall of Elements, for sure, go for it. This is just to provide additional healing for the group with Radiant Regeneration. And that's pretty much it for items, sets, and traits. I didn't really get into Twilight Remedy and why exactly I chose over Alexius for dispatch. I'll go over right now actually. Adds magic recovery. You also gain minor Aegis, which by the way stacks with major protection. Not a huge defensive buff, but still a noticeable, can be a noticeable defensive buff at times. And we also get additional spell damage. When the 5th piece bonus, we get when an ally activates your synergy, they heal themselves for 22,500 health over 10 seconds. So in 10 seconds, they get that much healing done. And this is, you know, provided to them whatever synergy you offer them, whether it's with a Templar shard or energy orb in this case, or a purify synergy during the fight if you're in your sword and board bar. And I'll explain how that works. They'll get the Twilight Remedy buff, which not only gives them a massive healing done over time, but they also do get minor force should they need a source of minor force. It's not a very reliable source of minor force unless you can somehow provide 2 different synergies consistently. We do have the Purify synergy and Energy Orb, but not the Purify synergy will only show for your teammates when they actually do get a status effect, a negative status effect on them that they can cleanse during a boss fight or during trash, which is probably highly likely, but it's still not reliable most of the time. Even in trials, it's not always reliable. So you always do have at least one consistent synergy with one of the skills I'm going to show you. But otherwise, yeah, it's a pretty strong healing set, and the fact that it's just a massive flat amount, especially, I mean, you're on a tanking spec, not a healer spec. It's pretty nice for group healing, but also, again, gives a nice passive damage boost if need be, especially in the pug group, I guess. If you want to run this build in groups where pugs may not even know how to run channel acceleration or trap beast. But yeah, that's pretty much it for all the item sets and such. Let me know if you guys have any questions about that, and I'll explain how the skills and passives and alternative skills and also champion points here in a bit. So the very first thing you'll notice is I have Resolving Vigor. I know Outcast, who's a great content creator, recommends Echoing Vigor for DPS specs because it gives you time to do your rotation. For your tank spec, however, it's not enough. It's just not enough, in my opinion, Echoing Vigor. I mean, I've tried it, solo tanking or in various scenarios like going downstairs or going down during portal phase and Veteran Cloud Rest, which is a trial. I've tried other instances where, as a Templar thing specifically, I tried, Echoing Vigor. It just sucks. It just sucks because you just don't have a great class-based heal. You just don't. I mean, you're going to be like, oh, what about Breath of Life or Honor the Dead? Well, sucks for you because Honor the Dead only scales off of your max magic and spell damage. I mean, compared to Tooltip, 6,785 if you heal yourself. Like, if you look at the Tooltip, heal yourself or a wounded ally. Let's say you run Breath of Life. I'll give you that one. It's still going to be roughly the same Tooltip. And Resolving Vigor as a tank gives you 10,000 health over 4 seconds. And also, it's a lot less costly than 4,314 magic hit. That's only 2614 stamina, which is easily manageable, again, by the playstyle offered by Ironblood and Ancient Guardian. So it's just not, I mean, again, we can look at this skill here too. Ritual or Hasty Prayer or whatever. I mean, again, huge magic cost. Pretty bad healing done. Honestly, the only other decent source of healing is Repentance, and that's not even like reliable during single target boss fights or boss fights where ads may not be even dying. I mean, it's very reliable during trash fights. It's just not really great. A burst heal, and that's pretty much what Resolving Vigor is there for. And it's going to be pretty interesting since they are going to move Resolving Vigor to the first skill, the Alliance War skill line, so people can get it a lot faster. So that's pretty neat to see. Again, this is going to be your main go-to heal. Nothing else except maybe Repentance at times. We do have Ransack, and some of you may be asking, well, if you have... Where is it? If you have Spear Wall passive activated, which you can use with Radiant Ward or Shards, you're not always going to have either one. And this is why I like having the minor protection option here that's always consistent no matter which bar you're on, no matter which skill you may be casting from the Adric Spear skill line. Not only, again, does the minor protection stack with minor ages, it also stacks with major protection, and so forth. So that's pretty good. Radiant Ward. Now, Radiant Ward is kind of a flex skill here. Radiant Ward can be interchangeable with Power to Light, and Power to Light's like a very good single target debuff to keep up on the boss. Not very good for Trash, but Trash I would probably just use Radiant Ward instead of Power to Light. Other than that, there are times where you may need to use, like or Binding Javelin, Aurora Javelin. I've had to use this as a Templar thing for, funnily enough, ironically enough, the last boss of Frostfall, which is Stonekeeper Hardmoon. And this helps a lot with the spheres when you knock them off the platform instead of people trying to kill them as a channel. As you walk around, with the Stonekeeper flailing his fiery arms about. So it's really helpful there. But other than that, that's kind of a flex spot in between Power to Light and Radiant Ward. There's another skill I want to mention here, Living Dark. Living Dark is noticeable especially when you have a lot of things attacking you. For single target boss fights, it's not that great. Because again, it says anytime an enemy uses direct damage attack against you, the sphere lashes back, reducing their movement speed by 60% for 3 seconds. And this is a great, crowd control ability for Trash when you, pre-aggro before the DPS do in dungeons. But it heals you for 1355 per direct damage attack. And it's like these effects can occur once every half second. I mean, most bosses in this game are not attacking you with direct damage attacks every half a second, so I would not really recommend this for boss fights. So that's pretty much it for all the alternatives for that flex slot. But yeah, Heroic Slash, it's always good to have. You're gonna have a minor heroism. It's an ulti gain source. You gain one ultimate every 1.5 seconds for 12 seconds. Not only that, you also afflict them with minor maim, and this is incredibly important to keep up for boss fights. And here we do have this kind of a switcheroo here with the skill setups compared to the Hero Storm iteration. We're actually going to put Energy Orb from the back bar instead of Repentance on the front bar onto the front bar here. The reason is, of course, we have Twilight Remedy slotted on the front bar. When ally activates your synergy, let's just pop this, and they pop it, well, that Twilight Remedy goes off on them. And that's primarily what we have now on here. And again, there's also, not only do they get the healing from Twilight Remedy, but they also get the healing done from Energy Orb. Whenever any player synergizes the orb, the orb explodes. And everybody can synergize one orb as of Greymoor. It explodes and heals for X amount of health to all friendly targets nearby. And also restores whoever synergized the orb. And this healing done can stack. So you have all 3 players in your group, pump this orb near you and around each other. That's a lot of healing done in addition to the 20-some thousand healing done over 10 seconds from Twilight Remedy off of one synergy. That's pretty insane. And the Remembrance Ultimate, this is actually a pretty insane skill too. Now, there are times where Iron Blood won't be up sometimes, especially during clutch moments. So Remembrance is a pretty great healing done skill, plus a great source of mitigation since you gain major protection. Otherwise, you do have the option of going for Reviving Barrier, which with the Magic Aid passive gives you 10% additional magic recovery, and also shields and heals for everybody else. So this is kind of a flex spot too. Remembrance is probably most helpful for me as a Templar tank, and again, Stonekeeper Hardmoon. Frostfall saved me quite a few times. And the back bar is going to be Restoring Focus. Now, one Restoring Focus and one Channeled Focus. Well, again, we're using a lot of stam, and Channeled Focus or Restoring Focus gives us stam in the back. And the thing about this game is, when you're holding a lock, right, you don't get any stam back, right? The only reason I'm getting stam back right now is because of the Restoring Focus skill under me. So if I'm not standing in it... Oh, there's an Ancient Guardian that's trying to sabotage my video. But again, look at that. I mean, that's a perfect example of the Engine Guardian being so much like of use this patch. It's insane. And not only does the Engine Guardian also give you stand back sometimes while you're blocking, but again, restoring focus gives you stand back while you're blocking as well. So it's very noticeable, plus the Engine Guardian, plus the major protection, allowing you to get away with all this. You just won't really have problems with resources for the most part, unless you just keep spamming skills for no reason. And one of the biggest, probably one of the biggest stam drains of this game for most non-Dragon Knight tank specs is going to be Silver Leash. Silver Leash, I've kind of leaned away from using Silver Leash in conjunction with Inner Fire or something like that, because when you leash in a ranged ad, you don't need to really taunt them until they're a problem. Your job is just to stack everything with Silver Leash, and then you just kind of take care of the taunting later, except unless you're prioritizing them as elite ads or priority ads, then yes, you taunt them after you leash them in, but most of the time you don't. And if they are elite ranged ads, you typically stack the melee ads on top of them rather than the other way around. So Silver Leash is going to be your go-to here for most trash fights, for most boss fights with ads. You can obviously also use this as a flex spot if you don't need Silver Leash. And Repentance. Repentance is just really really nice to have. It's just free 3000 stam per ad that dies, per enemy that dies in the dungeon. Plus you also heal you and yourself for X amount of health, or 3.5k in this case, per corpse nearby. That's a lot. And we just also do have passive recovery gain from Minor Fortitude, Endurance, and Minor Intellect while we're on our Resto Staff bar. If you kind of want to wait a couple seconds for your Radiant Regen to kick in from the Maelstrom Resto, it just went off a couple times now, to give you some Magicka back every crit heal. Extended Ritual. Extended Ritual is going to be sort of your pre-buff skill. So as you go in towards a pack of trash ads, right, you want to set down Ritual and then start doing everything else. And this is because if the ads start hitting your other teammates with status effects like dots or whatever, then they'll get the Purify synergy. And then by that time, usually, you'll be on your Sword and Board bar for your Twilight Remedy. And also, Ritual is not only just a great heal / synergy for you and your group, but also you also get the Sacred Ground passive, like also increases the amount of damage you can block by 10% for the duration, as long as you're standing in your own Cleansing Ritual, Rune Focus, or Rite of Passage area effects. And also, you get Minor Mending, which increases your healing done by 8%, which, by the way, stacks with the Life Mender passive from Argonian, and also stacks with CP, so that's a really nice bonus to have. Radiating Regen, again, we keep talking about this, it's just really nice passive healing. It's a lot of burst healing from, I'm just looking at the tooltip, over 11,000 as a tank, healing us, and also pretty much the rest of the 4-man team over 10 seconds, in addition to Twilight Remedy, in addition to Extended Ritual, in addition to Repentance, in addition to Energy Orbs popping off. Like, it's just a mad build, mad lad build. Pretty interesting. And, the healing is pretty noticeable. You don't need to bring a healer. As much as some people hate that, but you can bring a healer. I mean, obviously, the effects of this build is going to be double if you bring a healer. But you don't need to bring a healer if you go with this build, for the most part. For most content, for most forming content. So definitely a worthy skill to have. On the back bar, whenever you can, you'll pop Aggressive Horn, especially during burn phases during a boss fight, or whenever possible. Now, Aggressive Horn can also be interchangeable with other alternative skills like Nova. Maybe you need more mitigation, but you typically don't need Major Maim for a lot of boss fights. Maybe like certain boss fights, certain boss hard modes. Other than that, I would kind of keep Aggressive Horn or Nova in mind. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the bar setups. And we'll go into CP here real quick. 81 Ironclad, 56 Hardy, 56 Ellie, 66 Thick Skin. If this will help you in Black Rose Prison, it'll help you in any forming content. And 11 Quick Recovery. 51 Warlord, fit 16 Bashing Focus, fit 64 Arcanus, 16 Tenacity, and this will help you sustain quite a bit. 51 Tumbling and fit 72 Shadow Ward. You can kind of lower your Shadow Ward by a bit, but probably at least down to 19% if you need anything else. Just a heads up. And for blue CP, 64 Blessed, 56 Elf Ward. This will obviously, help with your healing done to yourself in the group. And this is kind of just for the repose passive, free damage, but you can obviously allocate away from this and put more into Elf Ward and Blessed if you need be. And we also have 100 Precise Strikes and 20 Thaumaturge. We're not really using a wall or any damage over time effect really. The 100 Precise Strikes, why that? Because that actually does buff the amount of healing done with Vigor when it crits. So definitely worthwhile to have. Look at this little guy. Again, the proc chance from Engine Guardian is just insane. Just insane this patch. Everyone's kind of using it, especially in PvP. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the Light's Mercy Templar tank build. I really do appreciate you guys. I mean, it's been quite a wild adventure. I'll look into, again, trying to get this vampire tank build finished. It's been pretty hard. I mean, it's probably one of the hardest theory craftings I ever had to do. But if it does get finished, I'll release it. If not, maybe next patch. But as always, if you guys have any questions, let me know down in the comments below. And again, I really do apologize that we had to push back the launch of the ESO website, where again I would have released the other video format, which would just have been much cleaner, much simpler, but there would have been a written guide. And yeah, hopefully you guys are staying safe. Hopefully you guys are staying well. And again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Stay safe and have fun.